welcome everyone to the Veterans Application webinar. Thank you for signing in and registering. Just so you know, this webinar is intended to help servicemen and women understand their options when it comes to attending law school. Initially, the first part of the webinar is going to talk about the application process and what types of things the admission committee is going to look for. And then I'm going to switch it over to the director of our Veterans Clinic and have him talk about just our community in general, opportunities that are available here at GGU and the financial aid for servicemen and women that you can take advantage of. So to start off, there are a list of application requirements. You do need the application form, the personal statement, a current resume, an additional statement of interest, character and fitness addendum, letters of recommendation, and a CAS report. All of this stuff I'm going to go over individually so that we can kind of talk about the different requirements. But essentially, a completed packet is going to have all of these things as a part of it. So first up is your completed and signed application form. We only accept applications through LSAC. We don't accept paper applications, so it is something that you're going to have to sign up for and register. If you are unable to go through the LSAC website, we do have a link that says apply online on the right-hand side of our admissions website. You can just click on there and it should take you directly to the link for registering. A personal statement. Now there's 3 prompts that are given to you in the instructions. It asks, what is your motivation for going to law school? What do you believe a successful law student, or why do you believe you'll be a successful law student or lawyer, and why do you wish to attend GGU School of Law? My first word of advice is pay attention to the page limit and the rules. By the time you're practicing, you're going to have to adhere to a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to font and page limits and things like that. So kind of showing that skill, attention to detail early on is always beneficial. Another piece of advice I'd like to give is always be true to yourself. It really comes across on your personal statement if you're writing something that you believe the admissions committee wants to hear, as opposed to writing something that is true to who you are. So you always do want to keep your personal statement authentic and organic. Your current resume, there's definitely, this is just an example of what a format you're probably aiming for. You do have to be careful of common pitfalls. You want to be mindful of the length, you want to be mindful of the content, and you want to be mindful of the format. The typical rule is that an average recruiter gives 6 to 8 seconds of their time glancing over a resume. And although the admissions committee will look at everything you submit, this is definitely something that you should keep in the back of your head, that the way you present the information is just as critical as what's in the content. You want to make it easy to follow, easy to read, and you definitely want to spell check because you don't want to have small blunders that'll stick out. When you're writing your resume, you want to make sure that you highlight all of the things that you want to highlight, and you want to make sure that that's what comes across, as opposed to it getting buried in a bunch of detail that's not really relevant to you as an applicant as a whole, or your application as a whole. The next requirement is, actually, a statement of interest is not a requirement. It is an option for you to provide if you don't feel like your personal statement was enough to cover everything that you wanted to talk about. This is a point in the application where applicants provide diversity statements, or they provide information about a specific field of practice that they want to go into. Again, this is not mandatory. It's something that is available to you if you feel like the personal statement was just not enough for you to really share your story. The character and fitness addendum, if you answer yes to any of the questions in section 9, it is not optional. You have to submit a CNF addendum. And the instructions, I know that it says that you only need to write about what the charges were, what the event was that you that made you answer yes and talk about how it got resolved. But I definitely think that you should consider putting more information in there, something about what you've learned from the experience, how you've dealt with it then and now, and how you've essentially grown or kind of learned from that experience. A lot of our admissions committees say that it's not the act itself that's going to stop you from gaining admittance. It's more about how you present that information and how you essentially quote unquote learn what you quote unquote learn from it. The letters of recommendation, don't ask a friend or a family or any sort of similar acquaintance. Those hold less weight than, let's say, a current professor or former professor, professional colleagues, or any sort of supervisors. You want to pick people who truly know you and truly understand your work ethic and your goals and your drive. I suggest that you find people who can truly comment as to you as an individual, because I have seen letters of recommendations where the recommender has said, I told the student that I'm not the best person, but they insisted anyway. So it definitely comes across to the committee if the person you chose to write your letter of recommendation doesn't even feel like they're qualified to do so. And last but not least is your CAS report. And your CAS report is essentially all of your LSAT scores that you've taken within the last 5 years, any post-secondary transcripts that you might have, any transcripts that you might have towards your BA degree. All of this gets submitted to LSAC, and then they verify the information, and then they put it in a packet so that when your application is ready, everything gets submitted to the committee for review. That's essentially everything that you're going to need to learn or need to submit when it comes to applying to the school. So I'm going to turn over the webinar to the Director of Veterans Legal Advocacy Clinic, Dan.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to talk about 3 specific things GGU does to help our veterans. Number 1, we have course-focused content for veterans. Next, we have student organizations for veterans. And last, financial aid. So first is the Veterans Legal Advocacy Clinic. This is a clinic that our law school runs, staffed by myself, and our attorneys act as students within the clinic. We represent veterans in the Bay Area and nationwide. Most of our cases focus on veterans dealing with disability issues with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We take cases all the way through appeals in Washington, D.C. We also help clients, military veterans who have received a less than honorable discharge due to post-traumatic stress or other forms of discrimination, which then blocks them from obtaining benefits such as service-connected benefits, housing, college education, things of that nature. We also work with incarcerated veterans at the San Francisco Veterans Treatment Courts to help them gain access to the same benefits. All of our work is performed by students in conjunction with the clinic. They also take a seminar course. In the seminar course, they learn the law that's applicable to veterans, and in the clinical component, they actually go out and practice that law and represent clients. Students, we take about 10 a semester. Our students are veterans, our students are non-veterans, are just those with the general interest. Throughout all of it, they learn valuable legal skills that they can apply to any area of law that they go on to practice in. Next is our Student Veterans Law Association. This is a really robust student organization we have here on campus. Its members are veterans and non-veterans. They do a lot of great work. They host a lunchtime speaker series where different attorneys, some with military backgrounds, some without, different attorneys come in and talk about different career paths for law students. They also offer peer-to-peer mentorship for first-year students as they accustom themselves to law school. They host study review sessions around midterm and final times, and they also do charitable work, most notable with Fisher House here in the Bay Area. Last is financial aid for veterans. Golden Gate University is what's known as a military-friendly school. Through the post-9/11 GI Bill, tuition can be maxed out at $24,500 a year, approximately. There's also a housing stipend for full-time students, which is approximately $4,400 a month. It's important to note that the housing stipend is dependent on the zip code of the school the veteran attends. So here in San Francisco, we're one of the more higher cost of living in the nation, so that's why it's $4,400. Other areas of the country will be different based on the zip code. So it won't matter where the student actually lives or their rent or mortgage obligations, the only thing that matters is the zip code of the school. So for full-time students here at GGU Law, it's approximately $4,400 a month through the GI Bill for housing. Also, all students will receive a $1,000 a year book stipend. For those that then need additional financial aid, GGU is a full participant in the Yellow Ribbon Program. What this means is that I mentioned earlier the financial aid for the GI Bill was $24,000. Any tuition over that amount is covered through the Yellow Ribbon Program, so the veteran does not pay anything. The Yellow Ribbon Program is funded by GGU and the Department of Veteran Affairs to make up any unused portion, or any excess portion that the GI Bill does not cover. Last is VOC Rehab Financial Assistance. This program is run entirely through the Department of Veteran Affairs, and this is a program where tuition can be paid to veterans that need training in a new career. And in our case, since we're a law school, that would be legal training to include your law school education. Next, we are going to move on to take any questions we have.
So the first question that was submitted is, are we still accepting applications? The answer is yes. We do have a printed deadline on our website letting you know that the application window has passed, but we are a rolling admissions type of university. What does that mean? That means that we have a certain number of seats that we need to fill each incoming year, and we accept applications until those number of seats are filled. Now, I definitely suggest that you submit an application earlier rather than later because you'd rather be offered full admission as opposed to being put on the wait list, but we are still accepting applications.
Next question, for service members, prior service members that have exhausted their GI Bill options, what are their options here at law school? Great question. So the GI Bill, there's a post 9/11, which impacts any veterans that served after September 11th, 2001, and the pre 9/11. Generally, up until a few years ago, a veteran had 15 years to use all the GI Bill. That changed a couple years ago, and now there's a lifetime you can use it until you're maxed out. If the GI Bill is maxed out, then the best bet for the veteran is to use a vocation rehabilitation benefit through the Department of Veteran Affairs.
The next question that we have is, are veterans, are they entitled to reduced tuition, or do they have to rely on simply federal aid after their GI Bill has been exhausted? Golden Gate University has multiple scholarships based on merit. Essentially, we have a full tuition presidential and a full tuition dean, and then we also have a faculty merit and a gateway scholarship that offers a variety of amounts. So the admissions committee, when you first apply to law school, there's two questions that we ask ourselves. The first one is, should this applicant be admitted? In which case, we do a holistic review of your application. So that means everything that you submit, letters of recommendations, personal statements, resume, all of that gets considered on a holistic level. And if the answer is yes, this applicant should be admitted. The next question that we ask is, how much merit scholarship, if any, should we award? And now the second question is strictly based on your LSAT and your GPA score. So the higher your LSAT/GPA, the better the award. The two full tuition scholarships that we offer, the first one, the presidential, it covers the entire time that you're in law school. So 4 years if you're part-time and 3 years if you're full-time. That means that as long as you don't get disqualified out of the law school and you're currently enrolled, then the school does cover tuition. That does not include fees, but it does cover tuition. Our full tuition dean scholarship is essentially similar, where the first year is guaranteed full tuition, but you do have to maintain a 3.0 GPA in order to keep it for the subsequent years.
Next question, great question. What is VOC Rehab? VOC Rehab stands for Vocation Rehabilitation. It is a federal benefit offered through the Department of Veteran Affairs. And what this means is that the VA will train the veteran for a new career, one that they don't already have skills or education in. So in our case, we are a law school here at GGU. So if one qualifies for the VOC Rehab program, the Department of Veteran Affairs will pay the veteran for their tuition of law school and possibly for their housing while they're in law school to help support themselves. This is a federal program. It's run entirely through the Department of Veteran Affairs. To qualify, a veteran generally needs to have a service-connected disability, as well as present themselves to the Department of Veteran Affairs to work with a career counselor to develop a career training plan. So a veteran would go to the VA, make sure they qualify with service-connected disability, come up with a career plan that includes going to law school, becoming a lawyer, taking the bar. The VA will then pay those expenses to train the veteran.
Okay, the next question is, do we take the GREs into consideration if they're submitted along with the LSAT score? Unfortunately, GGU does not take the GREs into consideration. The LSAT score is the only thing we really look at. The next question is, do vets need to take the baby bar? So as a requirement for a CBA law school, if the law school that you're attending is a CBA law school, you are required to take the baby bar regardless of your veteran status after your first year of study. Golden Gate University is an ABA accredited law school, so that means none of our students, our matriculated students, are required to take the baby bar. The next question is, how long does it take to complete law school? So ABA standard says that you cannot complete in less than 24 months, and you cannot take more than 84 months. There is a slight exception to the 84 months, but that's the general parameters. The next question that we have is, if you apply now, can you get a fee waiver? So Golden Gate does not charge an application fee. It's free to apply, but LSAC, through their LSAC portal, does charge a fee for the CAS assembly. The CAS assembly is a requirement, and it is part of a completed application. Because of that, if you were to email the admissions office at lawadmit@ggu.edu, we would be happy to generate a fee waiver to kind of help offset the cost. The next question is, are students allowed to start and interrupt their education if their status was activated? So I did talk to Student Affairs about this matter, and if a student gets activated, they are entitled to a leave of absence. And the leave of absence is typically 1 year, but if the leave of absence is due to military activation, they are definitely willing to extend that 1 year. You want to keep in mind that the 84 months is the essential cutoff of how long you can take to finish law school. But like I said, there are exceptions, and one of those exceptions is military. And it looks like we have one last question, and it says, when will applications open for fall 2020? Applications are typically done 1 year in advance. So if you were interested in the fall 2020 class, our applications are typically open October of the year prior. So October of this year, we're already going to start looking or accepting applicants for fall of next year. The typical schedule is by December of this year, we're going to start file reviews, and hopefully by the end of January, beginning of February, we'll have initial decisions. And then again, like I said, we have rolling admissions. So as applicants come in and they're reviewed, we send out letters. It's not something that we do in bulk. It's something that we do on a as-come basis. So it looks like that's the end of the questions. I wanted to thank you guys for attending and listening in. If you have any questions that we weren't able to answer on this webinar, you're more than welcome to email the admissions office or call the admissions office and talk to a counselor to kind of go through any of the processes that you've seen on here. Again, thank you for coming and have a good day.